Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
I'm Michael Burke, and this is Money Talks. Hi, I'm with Ray Sanin, owner of Copycat Music at Copycat Music in West Racine. What's the exact address?
3205 Washington Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ray, you came to West Racine. What year was that you opened your first shop on Kinsey Avenue?
2009, August of 2009.
And then you pretty quickly after that came to this. A year or so after?
That was 6 months later we were in here.
Yeah.
I started building this store 3 months after we opened that store.
Mm-hmm. And this store is several things. It's of course a full music store. It's also a place to find a lot of old things that have to do with sound and music, right? So why don't you just, what is this thing?
Well, it's a wind-up phonograph, 1890s, built by Columbia. They played the original cylinders, wax cylinders. Slipped on the drum like this, and of course I didn't bring the right cylinder for the right machine, but you flick the handle down somewhere around here, and she starts spinning, and sound is reproduced, and comes out the horn. And so yeah, we specialize in wind-up phonographs, restorations, rebuilds.
The first iPod.
Yeah.
So you love old stuff, and which is a pretty good segue to what we're going to be really focusing on today, which is this resurgence of interest in records, in vinyl as a source of music. When did you, and you've got a whole room here full of old records.
Well, this is just part of what we have.
Okay.
We have several rooms of other records that are not really open to the public.
Oh, really?
The rarer records that we don't want being overly handled. So basically what you're seeing here is all the records that are $10 or less, and the average being $1 to $3, $5.
Okay, so how many would you say you have at this moment?
I would say we have a little bit better than 500,000 titles between the two floors.
How do you get the records? Obviously, you're buying them from people, and we had actually a perfect illustration of that right before the show. While we were, you had a guy standing there who had brought in his truck some records he wanted you to take a look at. How often does that happen?
It can happen a dozen times a day. I don't buy every collection that comes in.
Yeah, you took about a 5-second look at his collection and just said, no, sorry.
Well, it's a dirty old collection. And stuff that's just not going to sell for us. I mean, look, I love all the music, but Frank Sinatra doesn't sell. Those people that are selling those, they're not buying those.
So mainly are you carrying records that, what decade would they start in?
Late 60s to 90s are bestsellers, the sweet spot being the late 70s.
60s?
Yeah, late 60s.
So that doesn't include the main era of the Beatles?
To an extent it does. When you start getting into the British invasion thing, that's almost a different category because they did start out so early in the 60s, but they carried over so far into today.
Yeah. So, what are the ages of people who are selling you their collections? They must be, there must be a lot of baby boomers because they were listening to the music of the time you described.
The guys that I'm buying records from, that I'm actually buying them from, are guys that are our age, 40s, 50s, early 60s. The guys that are older than that want to sell me their mother's records. That's basically what we saw this morning out in front of the store.
I see. Yeah. And so now, when did you start to see this resurgence of interest in vinyl, and who's buying them?
I've always had a personal interest in vinyl. I'm a lifelong collector of vinyl records. Started collecting back in '73. My dad and I collectively collected together 50s, 60s group harmony music.
How big is your collection?
My own personal collection is now incorporated into this store.
Oh.
Because once I got into the business of selling records, I really didn't have any business collecting records.
Okay.
So, I mean, I know where most of my stuff is if I ever had to pull it back, but you're certainly never in a better position to sell your records than when you own a record store.
Mm-hmm. And so who's buying them?
Well, it's mostly the late teen, early to mid-20s guys. There's some guys in their 30s too, and then there's still plenty of the old school collectors like myself that are still collecting. They're not buying as many records because they've been collecting for 45 years. So they don't need that much anymore. They're looking to fill certain holes in their collection.
Yeah. Now the younger demographic that you describe, I'm curious why you think what the lure is for them. But one thing I think could be going on is that phenomenon of records kind of skipped them in a lot of ways, and maybe they're just sort of.
Well, not only did it skip out on them, they missed the entire music experience of what it was like to go into a record store, thumb through records, the vinyl experience of actually watching that record spin, pulling the record out, opening it up, looking at the album art. I mean, isn't that what we did as kids?
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't wait to thumb through your record collection.
Yeah, and often the lyrics sheet was right there in a size you could actually read.
And there were all kinds of things that we used the inner sleeve of this for, right? You remember
I have no idea what you're talking about. And so what have you got lying on the table there? You had a reason for grabbing this. And this one, your price on it is $3.
$3. When we first opened this department, I bought all of the records that I bought came from another store's secondary stock, all of his doubles. And so initially, there were some records that were worth more than $1, worth more than $3, worth more than $5. Get them all priced. This is 10,000 records that need to be priced. They need to be alphabetized, categorized, put out in the right spot. Price them all $1. And then as collections came in and we filled holes that we didn't have, obviously you can get a little bit more for it. But here's a record that everybody knows, Boston's first album, 1977. If you go to Best Buy, their main drive aisle, that's the aisle that fans you out into the store, has vinyl records. And this record is in there, among others that have been repressed, reissued, and they get $25 for it.
Wow.
Now here's a mint minus copy. They really don't get much nicer than that. And it's $3 here.
It does look like it's in good shape.
It's
Why don't you explain that term that you just
Oh,
used?
mint minus is the highest grade that I give anything in this store that's once it's been opened.
Okay.
And even if it hasn't been opened, I'm going to scrutinize it. Because mint has to be mint. Means it has to look like the day it came out of the box at the record store.
Yeah. Well, let's stay with what you think the lure is. And I did start to see LPs show up at concerts maybe 5 years ago or something like that. You know, you'd have the CDs and you'd have the albums next to them, and it was young people who were often buying them. The audiophile will say a record sounds better and warmer than a CD. Do you think so? And what explain why that would be?
First of all, digital breaks things down to 0 and 1. What does that mean? It's digital. When you get the analog recording, you're getting the whole recording, including all the ambient noise, and in some cases the studio chatter that's going on. You miss all of that in the CD experience. And you don't get to see the record spin, which I think is an important dynamic.
You do?
Absolutely. Do you know how many grooves a 12-inch, 33 RPM record has?
No idea.
1.
Oh.
Thanks. Insert laugh track here.
And your point being what on the one?
There was no point to that other than it's part of the vinyl experience.
Oh, okay. Of course, one part of the vinyl experience can be those annoying little pops and things from a scratch record.
Think about it this way. Each one of those pops and scratches that's in your personal record is the exact same thing as a thumbprint There are no two records in the world that have those pops and skips and scratches in the exact same spot.
You sound like a salesman.
I just love records, Mick.
Yeah. You mentioned the experience of shopping, and I think that's a really good point. Is it's way different to paw through the stacks of records than it would be, say, to sit online and shop at iTunes, and listen to listen to little samples. But
you can't see it.
Yeah, but you do get to listen to those samples. So do you have a listening, like a test listening experience for people?
By special appointment, we have listening stations that are available in certain places in the store. I used to leave them out. Well, last winter, I had people just coming up here playing records. Well, most of the cost of our records isn't the acquisition of the records, it's keeping this section organized, categorized, and alphabetized. So you can't have people coming up here just sitting around playing records all day long. So I move those into another room, and if a guy absolutely has to do it, and then I've got a listening station back behind the register too. So
yeah. One thing you carry a lot of is turntables of various ages, right? So obviously a person needs a turntable to play a record, and how much action is there in turntables?
Well, and anybody who's looking to get back into records again, the first thing they do is look at that turntable that's in their basement and figure out why it was in the basement in the first place. The belt got worn, maybe the needle needs to be replaced.
In my case, the cover won't stay up.
Well, and that may be something you'll just have to live with. My fix for that is to get rid of the cover, and then you won't have that problem.
Yeah, right. And finally, I'm kind of curious, how much time do people spend up here? Are they systematic in their search? What sort of shopping behavior do you see up
Some
here?
guys collect by label. They're trying to complete a record label. Some guys collect by group. They collect by era. They might have a list when they come in here. They might just start at one end and work their way across, and if it takes them all day to do it, they're not gonna leave before it's done, because if you do that once, normally this section here has all the new arrivals. So if you're checking that like every day, every 2 days, you don't have to go through this entire section.
And by the way, you said guys a couple times. Is it mostly male?
It's really not. It's split down the middle. It wasn't always like that. This was predominantly a guy's hobby when I was growing up. But there's an equal amount of girls that are collecting now too. And in fact, they're younger than the boys.
Interesting. Yeah, well, if you haven't been to Copycat Music, I hope people will come and check it out. Ray Sanin, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks to Scott Anderson, our producer, who also is an audiophile, and we'll probably be looking at the records when we're done. Thanks for watching.